For almost a decade on my TV show Interview with Ed, I've been interviewing extra-dimensional beings and consciousnesses from a number of different realms. Many of my questions have been answered, but with every answer comes more questions. Join me on my ongoing quest to find out, who are we? Why are we here? And where are we going? Welcome everybody. Super excited today because we have Ron Holt back, and he is going to help us with quantum navigation and help us navigate some of these post-eclipse energies I've been hearing and seeing in chats in different areas and things. A lot of people are kind of having hangovers. They're calling it the Eclipse Hangover. So maybe, Ron, you can come in and help us deal with some of that stuff.
Well, thanks a lot, Ruben, for inviting me in on your cosmic consciousness bus to the galaxy. I'm always happy to be a part. I feel like I'm sitting next to the driver on the bus, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. So, post-eclipse hangover. Wow. Okay. So, huge subject matter. Where do you begin? So, during this eclipse, there was a powerful up-leveling that took place, and I'm sure everybody felt it. So I've been monitoring a lot of the Schumann resonance over each day, and today's was off scale. Well, it has been going off scale for a while now. And I think that's been an assist in helping bring up some trapped energies inside of us, disconnected energies inside of us. So a lot of shadow issues are coming up. And so a lot of this process is bringing up the history of ourselves. Geez, this is just so vast. I think I want to take a different angle with this.
Sure.
We all have dualities inside of us, and in order to allow those dualities to integrate together and move into integration, we have to go through a period of beginning to face them. So quantum navigation is about mapping, navigating, and integrating the inner landscape of our mental and emotional and our conscious and unconscious landscape. So by direct personal experience. Now that's where the challenge is. So meeting what has taken place on all of our history of being in bodies requires a self-realization of who and what we are in the larger perspective. So that larger perspective is that we're consciousness, and in consciousness, we exist already integrated. However, we took a journey, and that journey required us forgetting who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and what's this all about. So during that process, we picked up a lot of traumas, wounds, etc. Those are the shadow issues. And also, one of the main things that comes up is the unconscious conditioning. So we picked up a lot of unconscious conditioning, especially when we were most sensitive and vulnerable, which means in our childhood, we were most impressionable. And when we trusted everyone around us, we trusted our parents, and we were hoping that we would get the nurturing, healing, etc. Okay, so those unconscious conditionings polarize a whole lot of our emotional pains, dramas, and traumas. Now, those dramas and traumas begin to contract us. I'm bringing this up because when we up level to know who and what we were before all of this happened is essential so that we can begin to let them go as we meet these old wounds that are coming. Now, I'm nutshelling a lot of this, but a lot of what I'm talking about has to do with these roots of unconsciousness: abandonment, betrayal, powerlessness, worthlessness, neediness, helpless, hopeless, and nothingness. So when we go through this up-leveling experience, like we all just felt with the eclipse, yes, the energy rises up inside of us, and yeah, it feels great in a lot of instances. But if we haven't dealt with those shadow issues, and where do they go, and how do they integrate together? How do we integrate all this inside of our own access to love? Then what happens is you fall back down into where you need processing the most. That's the simplest and shortest answer. And I hope that's a little bit clear.
Yeah. So what do you think, what was it through this eclipse energies? And I know we've talked on some of the other calls about, there was like a trinity of eclipses that sort of went through North America over the past, I don't know, since, what was it, 2019-ish? Or no, 2017, I think, was like the first. And then there was one recently, but it created this pattern, like an A pattern. And a lot of people were saying that this one was sort of the closure of this cycle of eclipses and of energy. Do you know why this particular one was so important for clearing these energies? Or I know that gets into astrology and all kinds of other things, but I'm just wondering the timing. Why now? Obviously, we're going through this big shift, but why now?
Why now? So if you've been following the astrology, you can see that we've been going through a lot of major alignments, especially with galactic center, with Pluto, with Eris, and with Chiron. So all of these elements are about moving deep into the unresolved issues we have in our attics, basements, and closets and cabinets inside of ourselves. And so this has been a push to try to step by step, stage by stage, give us a little bit of assistance in, I call this in my quantum navigation classes, like I started tracking this probably about 2 years ago. So I've been laying the groundwork little by little as consciousness has been sharing with me on this subject. That the process with the alignment in the astrologics first took us through, I would use the first metaphor as squeezing the toothpaste tube. So inside of our being, now we came down from consciousness. We created a suit in order to house the consciousness, and that suit has all of the frequencies of separation consciousness that enables separation to exist. So we're we're experiencing all these, let's say, in the 4 states of matter: solid, liquid, gaseous, plasma. But we also have astral, etheric, voidness, and consciousness. So if we were to look at this glove as being the housing that enables us to experience all of those all at once, so this, which is operated by our consciousness, and it sets in motion what we experience because of entanglement. So as we drop down and into this reality, we get to experience all the separation frequencies. So depending on how we've matured through those frequencies, we level up. Now, of course, being willing to face your issues is one thing, but we always need a little bit of assistance from the greater consciousness, the alignment of the planets, because they're all consciousness also. So all of these factors are monitoring the time when consciousness on this planet, let's say a collective, is ready to make a transformation. Well, it needs assistance, because even though you're willing to look at a lot of the issues going on inside of you, a lot of the shadow issues and unconscious conditioning, well, that assistance comes in the form of like squeezing the toothpaste tube. And the toothpaste tube, remember, we came in as just consciousness, so we gave weight to the unconscious conditioning, the shadow issues, and we turned it sort of into something more solid, and we hold on to that. So let's say the original consciousness is now densifying. So it's, consciousness acts like that squeezing of the toothpaste tube to bring out that's what's densified for us. Okay, so we went through this process of experiencing a lot of our stuff coming up that's really messy, yucky, and dense. Great. So consciousness has been compassionate, but then it wants to up the ante. And that upping the ante means that it adds more assistance. So, of course, that assistance means that, okay, so the character, which is the illusionary, this is the dish. I use this metaphor as the dishwashing glove because we all know it's hollow. And so when consciousness goes into the dishwashing glove is the meat suit, and the meat suit is run by the consciousness. So we draw to ourselves exactly the issues we need and the reality that's operating in and around us. And so as we start to become more in tune with that, and also more in tune with operating the switches, levers, and dials of consciousness, that it changes the density level of the reality existing around us. Okay, so the next level, the character, now has been going through this process. Now, our conditioning is the 3D character wants linear signposts so it can navigate if it's moving in a trajectory that's optimal for it. Well, external markers for this, are, am I achieving? Am I being successful? Am I, all those belong to the character. Well, there's been a big change, and that change has been to move inside and move into the quantum part of yourself and start ferreting that, bringing that back out, being in the stillness so that you can feel which is the next trajectory for you, letting go of the markers of the 3D reality. And so this process is a little more frightening, because letting go of what, has been impacted into us, that progress is according to the external markers of reality, the 3D consciousness, then giving those up is a complete change of the character. Now, that character holding these trajectories is kind of like having a spin. So you spin what's important to you inside, around and around. And so that spinning kind of gives you a balance, just like those old tops. Maybe you've seen them as a child, the tops that you pump and they spin. And then when they're at a relatively good speed, they can hold their position and steady themselves. Well, that's kind of like the character. And so it got used to this spinning on its linear trajectory and operating like this. Well, consciousness has been slowing that down until, we start feeling that top starts getting wobbly and then it starts to fall. When it falls, we start to feel this centrifugal force kept a lot of our issues at bay. Also, the centripetal force either kept things in the attic or the basements and in the closet. So when that character stops and has to rely on a much larger sense of itself, then it goes through facing even more of its incompletely processed shadow issues. So it's been slowing that top down so that the birth of the new individual that's eternal can start to come out and be inhabited. Then from that point, consciousness has been adding increased challenge, which makes it seem like you're on a unicycle going through a obstacle course up and down hills while you're being thrown all these priorities and you have to grow more hands in order to juggle all the things that are coming at you. So that's an important state too, because it's getting the individual to step out of its history, identity, and personality with so many things to take care of, as well as the unicycle and the top stopping and dropping. We're moving out, unconscious conditioning of the character is so deeply enmeshed into all of our being that it acts like a phantom limb. So it keeps trying to pull us back into re-inhabiting the old way. So this unicycle and juggling is helping us to stop and feel, experience, letting go of your history, identity, and personality. Because during this period, you get to experience the weight of Atlas on your shoulder, all your responsibilities, liabilities, etc., etc. And that has you buying into that character again. So it kind of forces the issue of observing the history, identity, and personality and stepping out of how you keep that going. So this is one other area of the conditioning that's been taking place. And all of this is needed. Why? Why would all this be needed? Because we originally came from being in a fabric where we existed everywhere, but we had no structure. So in the infinite expanse, and this is hard for the mind to grok, we're in the infinite expanse, and that is the continuum of consciousness. So we're complete inside of that. We're fulfilled inside of that. That upwells through our very being in all parts. But imagine the conditioning of managing the meat suit with all of the history, identity, personality, and Atlas, because the weight on Atlas' shoulders weight on our own shoulders shows us our inner tyrant and our inner critic. And that weight is enormous. Imagine letting go of the weight on your shoulders, how much that inner critic is going to be just on your case. So allowing that process to bring forward into the consciousness that I have a lot of entanglements into upholding this inner critic. Well, where did the inner critic come from? Our unconscious conditioning back when we were a child, the stories, and especially if you're an abused child, those stories and the dramas and traumas that were constantly regaled against you, you start replaying them and you use those in order to uphold that inner critic and keep you on that, I call it the hamster wheel of duty, obligation, and self-sacrifice. So imagine all of these things I just talked about, they have roots and connections into all the areas where we split, fracture, and dissociate ourselves. So we start pulling back in our contractedness, repulsiveness, revulsiveness, and such. And that's a huge part of beginning to disentangle, integrate, embrace, and allow yourself to let go of these very deeply held wounds and conditioning, unconscious conditioning. So when this eclipse happened, yes, we got an experience to experience the equanimity, being free and feeling fulfilled. Great, that's what's there residing for us, waiting for us. But if you're back down into facing the hangover, facing issues that have come up, it's about taking time now to look at those things and begin to process them in such a way that they become like clouds passing by, because you're knowing experientially that you are all things, you exist all across the continuum and in all parts of the separational reality. And so one of the elements that comes up for us is we are our worst critic whenever we feel a wound coming up that contracts us or disables us from feeling the joy, the bliss, the communion, the reverence of all things around us and with each other. But in realizing and experiencing that you are already the continuum of consciousness, that aspect enables you then to realize that whatever contracting issue, pain, shame, blame, fear, guilt, grief, and so does not mar who and what you are. You are already perfect and free. You came here with that, but we all have been conditioned through that process of experiencing the drama and trauma. We've been conditioned to hold on to that drama and trauma because it does contract us and it does feel real. And oh my God, does it hurt? But in order for it to pass through to what it needs, we have to see it as a part of ourselves that needing to be re-embraced and reintegrated just as it is. And as it is, accepted in that, it begins to resolve and dissolve by itself in that accompaniment of our conscious, holistic love. So these act like clouds passing through. You feel it fully, experience it fully, but you're allowing it to return to where it needs to go into integration while you experience whatever it is that's coming up, but it doesn't stop you from fully anchoring into the wholeness that you already are and cannot be taken away from you. So anyway, I drew a little graphic for this process. And I've been using this in quantum navigation classes to try to show some of the levels of what's been going on, the dynamics that's going on. We're making this transition from what seems like third density into a completely new fourth, fifth, whatever density that you want. However, in order to pass through this change, Saturn, the consciousness of the school teacher, is watching very closely and wants to understand, wants to test you and see if you meet the parameters for self-realization and your own enlightenment. So we go through what is like a bottleneck between the two realities. And during that bifurcation of the two realities, we start experiencing all of these spins. And these spins are polarized consciousness trying to seduce you back into the consciousness of separation. So it comes up financially, politically, religiously. It comes up in every way. Are you ready to integrate the dualities and polarities? Or do you still need practice during the process of this? Can you experience high levels of polarizations all around you, allowing it to be, and you still have access to the fullness of who and what you are? So passing through this, we began, and this was the toothpaste tube, the unicycle, and the addition of all of the challenges being thrusted upon you and you juggling them to see what your consciousness does with all of the challenges that are rising for you. You know, when you're in the midst of so many challenges that are coming, you can't even think about your character. So you're actually making a passage into a state where you are evolving and utilizing all of the creative palettes, the artistic palettes of what you're capable of. And you're meeting all these situations with just your creativity and your consciousness. So you're self-empowered, but you're not holding on to you can't hold on to the history, identity, and personality. So it's helping this process of coming into nothing and holding this state around you. And then the obliteration starts to take place on deeper and deeper levels, the obliteration of character and how it holds on to reality in subtle, fine ways until you completely surrender and you become all things. So this, you see what I mean? The eclipse really presents an awakening and awareness of all of these levels of watching ourselves and integrating all these, using everything that comes out. I mean, it seems like we're having to watch ourselves on a moment by moment basis and stay integrated within that process. So hopefully I answered the question.
Yeah, well, no, thank you for setting the stage, so to say, because I think without all of those elements that you described, it's hard uh, to pinpoint what's happening, because I think people are feeling all of this stuff, but it's hard to put words to it. And you did a beautiful job with all your diagrams and analogies. Thank you so much. It's perfect, perfect. And it got me thinking. There's a lot of talk about pole shifts, right? This has been going way back to Edgar Cayce, and there's different types of interpretations of that. But what we do have scientifically, data showing that the Earth's electromagnetic field is weakening in a sense, and there's the polar ice caps that they're able to go down deep into seeing the layers from thousands of years ago, and it does seem that there in the past there has been the electromagnetic, not the this is, I think, where the misinterpretations of some of the readings have said the whole world's going to flip on its axis and do all this crazy stuff. That's not the case. But what we do have evidence of is this electromagnetic field weakening, and sometimes those electromagnetic fields actually have flipped to the other side. And as you were showing us the diagrams, that image just kept coming in, and it's almost like the weakening of the electromagnetic field of the Earth is a symbol or part of this process of the loosening of the toothpaste tube, right? On a more tangible, physical, measurable level that we can see in our life here. Have you made that analogy or connection?
Yes, in a way. So the character, the illusionary character, the one that's in the meat suit and has the, let's say, beta brainwave and linear trajectory, linear consciousness. So how that brain holds memory is through the magnetics and gravitics of the planet. So that's been weakening and changing all in concert with this change that I've been speaking about, that, the Schumann resonance, the toothpaste suits, et cetera, the astrologics. So right as this is taking place, if you're grasping and holding on to the linearity of the character, then you're starting to experience walking to, having an idea and going out to another room to complete that idea. And halfway through, you forget, what did I leave? Why am I leaving? And a lot of this is happening more and more as we transition from the character to the being. So consciousness, as I said, exists everywhere. We have a different type of consciousness as the character, and we're grasping, holding, and gripping tightly to the linearity of that character. And that's been the sense of security, safety, etc., and the reality around us. So if all of those are changing, and certainly I think evidence has shown that during some critical pole changes, it is possible for the tonics on the planet, which is riding on the more fluid parts of the planet, to rotate and shift and change. So imagine if the pole coming to such a shift, reality is coming to such a tremendous shift, doesn't the consciousness of the character, the 3D, have, one would think out of compassion, that consciousness would do all it can to help assist it move into the understanding of the continuum of consciousness that it is. So it will help in stair-step ways what we're ready for to embrace trusting in the larger aspect of the continuum of consciousness, our quantum states of being. So that's what I see happening, with this loss or change in the magnetics and the gravitics of the planet.
Yeah, and I'm in the unique position here, being in Japan this past couple of weeks in Taiwan, to view the different cultures and how the shift is affecting different cultures and in different ways. So you brought up earlier, believe you said duty, obligation, and self-sacrifice. What are those the three? And we know, and you've spent time in Japan, so we know that's a big part of the Japanese culture. And what I'm noticing, I spent some time yesterday. I came back towards the city, and when I first moved to Japan, I lived just outside, called the suburbs of Tokyo, about an hour train ride outside of Tokyo, near one of the army bases, Camp Zama. That's where I sort of landed when I first came here when I was 19. It was really interesting, hanging out with some old friends from that neighborhood and sort of driving through the neighborhood, bringing back all these memories. It's really changed a lot in the past 20 years, but it's like a 20-year ago adventure that I came over. There's 20 years now. And all my friends from that period, they're still working at the same base, working at the same job, living in the same neighborhood. They all have kids now that are grown and moving into college. And it was just a fun thing to see and experience. But what I'm seeing here is a bit of a delay in the cities. There's a bit of a delay in the shift. Like, people aren't really aware of, I think, because of maybe the attachment to the material and conformity. And we were talking about, the Japanese have this saying, I've said this many times, I'm sure you're familiar with this, Ron, is if the nail sticks up, you got to beat it down. That's
the raised nail gets hammered down.
Yes, the raised nail. And that's a big part of the Japanese culture, is to not stick out, so to say, where more in Western cultures, that sort of nail sticking out is more, it's not a big deal. It's like, it's almost encouraged. Yeah. Be different, stand out on your own, that kind of thing. Where here it's very different. So I'm talking to my friends and I'm showing them, I told them the crazy deal I got in my house in Japan and out in the country. And I'm showing them all the crazy deals. There's crazy deals right now in the countryside for houses. And I think I may have sent you some of that stuff, Ron. And they're looking at it, like, wow, that's a really good deal. And I'm like, yeah, guys, just move to the countryside and like raise chickens and change your life. Oh, no. I'm very fine here in my box, and literally in a little box that they live in, and there's not much room. And I'm like, no, this is an opportunity, guys. This is crazy. There's, houses super cheap, but it was just crazy to see their reaction to that. And then what we're seeing, what everybody's feeling here or there in the West, with the shifts of the energies and the eclipses and stuff. It's almost, when we're in the city here, and I'm talking to friends, it's almost like they're not feeling anything. Nothing's changed, or they're so, wanting to stay in the toothpaste tube or something. I don't know. And I just wanted to share that perspective and get your take on the different cultures and how it affects different parts of the world in different ways. Meanwhile, I'm in the countryside, and I'm having these crazy synchronicities, and I'm meeting these very advanced people, like almost more advanced than in other parts of the world. We have this guy Takizawa-san, who's building this eco village and has a community of 500 people. He's ready to start to bring in, and he's like super advanced. He just got back from Finhorn and Damanhur and he was traveling the world in India. He was traveling the world looking at all these different eco villages to get ideas to build this amazing eco village sustainable community. So the contrast in Japan is quite extreme. other parts of the world, I think it's happening, but in a different way. So just kind of addressing the different parts of the world and different cultures. How do you see that evolving?
I think like this on that. There's soul groups that come into the planet at different gestation periods. So we know the solar system goes through the 26,000 year cycle. And 13,000 years is on the upper side and 13,000 is on the lower side. So, and it's relative. If you're looking at a galaxy, which side's up? Well, to label that, the top side would, I'm labeling the integrative side, the bottom side, the dissociative side, the side where separation exists. So soul groups come in at different points of the 26,000 year cycles. And we go through, I don't know how many births and rebirths through one of those solar cycles or more. Because to really trust and believe the consciousness is all pervasive and exists everywhere after having gone through lifetimes of having to defend, being traumatized, and so on, fighting all these layers and levels of consciousness that must take place for you to stand solidly inside yourself. So soul groups come in at different points, and they get impression of other, let's say, black sheep that have been here for a while and are more used to the norm of this planet. Oh yeah, they're conquering again. And they're okay with seeing the different stratifications of separation consciousness, as well as they understand there's varying stratifications of unity consciousness. And when you're at certain of these unity consciousness level, you go, oh yeah, okay, I don't blame them. I know they have to go through so much experience so they can stand in themselves, because we only wake up after we've done everything wrong, because we forgot who we were, why we were here, where we're going, what's this all about. And the only way to build on that, to really build compassion so that it's so solid in your soul, is that you've got to play the perpetrator, victim, and rescuer, healer, hero, fixer over and over and over again until you go, oh, I get it. The cycling of consciousness goes through so much utopic and dystopic cycles over and over. It does not stop on this planet. It does not stop until you see it's done for a reason, so that we see that, oh, I'm the peace, I'm the love, I'm the consciousness, I'm, the kind of the lighthouse. I can allow without polarizing all these consciousness to be. Okay, so that black sheep gets put in, and other black sheeps gets put in as associates, so that some of that is bleeding off experientially to the collective consciousness soul groups that are having to go through, new souls on the planet. New souls on the planet, they're wild. They're like gamma particles that don't know, that have no restraint. I don't know what it's like, so I'll just go ravage somebody else, right? I just need the experience. Well, it's not until you've had it done to you and you've done it that you begin, no, don't do that. Okay, so these souls are in timings. So those circuits of timing leave them in eddy currents in different locations, and it's all over the world. Not everybody is gravitating to the level of consciousness that this, self-sustainable and working on your shadow self so you don't project on other people because you love everybody, you see everyone as yourself. Well, those are not going to be resonant with new souls. They've got to hold on. They're in different stratifications of separation consciousness and polarization and contractedness. So imagine their sense of security is grabbing onto that 3D and doing everything in an unconscious way of upholding the hamster wheel of duty, obligation, self-sacrifice, because they know without having that job and performing according to the belief systems, the unconscious belief systems of the group, they can't stand and be themselves. They have to self-identify and be inside of the group consensus to be accepted. So you're constantly compromising the natural part of yourself that's trying to self-empower and stand as a conscious being inside of this whole matrix of reality. So that's what I see going on in there. And, a lot of compassion for all that. I understand because, I've worked at Honeywell for a while and was in the Navy for a while. And back at that time, I was, starting to get some of this stuff. But if you didn't have a good grip on a solid job, then what were you? Your job was you. Your reputation was you. And that's not true. We're so much more than all of that. And so this whole process is about stripping away all of that and coming down to what is our organicness? What is our indigenous self? And that is powerful. We've been exploring like two snakes, let's say yin and yang. So these two snakes have separated from themselves to explore polarity and duality. And until one can assimilate the other, will you be a dragon and fly again? The dragon is who and what we are as all of consciousness. And it's so powerful. And it's this period that's coming up with this solar eclipse gave us an opportunity to experience the singularity. In a black hole, you have a singularity. And that singularity has two parts. They're kind of like two sea urchins that sit bottom to bottom. And the spines are like the plank fibers that extend out, and they populate all the different possibilities and probabilities. So coming down a black hole to the top side of the singularity, what it's trying to do is rip and tear all structure, form into energy and consciousness again. Once it's energy and consciousness, then it can pass through the membrane and then be moved into superposition, where it's extending everywhere as part of all things. So that process of coming into the singularity and destroying the self, obliterating the self, I believe consciousness has been patient, waiting for us to have enough maturity to assimilate the two snakes, the yin and the yang, the higher self, the lower self, the male and female, the inner child and adult, to assimilate those dualities. And in assimilating them, they can return and be the singularity. The singularity is the dragon that we were before we separated into, dropping into this reality. So I use this graphic here to try to explain that. This is Purusha. This is us as like the dragon consciousness, and it sits right on the membrane between the two different, this is the separation reality. And here's all the layers and levels of the separation reality with all the fractals of each and every one of us, but it's all one consciousness. And so the singularity, through the obliteration of everything that we hold on to when we're ready and we realize, oh, I already am all things. I can be nothing and be everything and be everywhere all at once. So the singularity is the dragon that's waiting for us to give up all the different parts of ourselves as the character so that we occupy everywhere consciously in a stabilized pattern.
There's a lot of talk, Z or Star and others are talking about the return of the dragon ley lines and different energy spots on the planet that are connected to that dragon energy. Does that correlate with that, what you just said there?
I believe Mother Earth is assisting in revamping or energizing all of this. I think dragon lines, if I remember, I haven't looked back at the ley lines and stuff. That was an old past hobby of mine, was going around the planet and tasting all of them, as many of the ley lines and power spots and such, and working with them. And dragon lines, I believe, are a classification. Let's see, I'm not sure if they're longitudinal or if they're horizontal, or if dragon lines are the serpentine lines. I forgot the classifications. Forgive me on that. But as I've experienced in Japan, I was at one of the temples, Sojoji Temple, and I was doing prayers inside of there, meditating, and a dragon came up, a golden dragon came up and was flying overhead. It stayed overhead for several days. And I experienced it once again. I was climbing up on Mount Fuji, and I had a friend of mine, a translator, Sayaka. She was with me, and when I told her, "Oh my God, the golden dragon's here," and she pointed to this stele that had Japanese writing on it, and it said, "Here is the dragon line." Interesting. I believe that Mother Earth is charging those dragon lines, getting us ready, preparing us to meet that consciousness. So it's, I haven't, since COVID and the lockdown, I haven't been traveling very much. So I don't know what's happening now out there. I've just been, as far as the ley lines and stuff, and putting my finger or, tapping the energy on those places. I've been working with the quantum. So I don't know what's happening on the planet. She might be able to convey much more about what's happening.
Well, it just makes sense with what she's saying. What you're talking about, this sort of the dragon energies were separate, but now we're kind of coming back into this union. So I imagine there's some correlation there. I love the analogy, by the way, of these different souls. I guess kind of like new souls that are experiencing that in a sense the hero's journey, right? The scripted Hollywood movie. The hero goes through and has to go through all these things, and then realizes it was just the good guy, the bad guy, the saving the heroine, and all that stuff, right? I certainly went through that phase in my life, being in Hollywood and reading scripts and trying to come up with a different story. And an interview with Ed was my realizing that there is a different story out there, and let's put a camera on that, because it's way more fascinating than the typical, hero's journey Hollywood stuff that we've we've been indoctrinated with over and over and seen that thing play out every angle, right? Every which way you can. But how do you see moving forward? Do you have a vision or a crystal ball into how this all plays out with these different souls, that some still needing to have that hero's journey and go through that cycle, while others are ready to, squeeze out of the toothpaste? And I know we're all feeling it. I know it's happening worldwide. The energies are there. You can't escape it. But how does that play out? Obviously, we're having complex, the Iran-Israel thing just the past 2 days or so. There's all that stuff that's happening on that side of the world with news cycles and craziness, right? As I was just saying, in Japan, I talked about on my Friday's LinkedIn's Lowdown, they're on their 7th booster now. Japan is like the final country that has not come to terms with the vaccine craziness. And they're actually, Pfizer's building a new factory here to create vaccines, because Japan seems to be welcoming them, and where the rest of the world has kind of kicked them out. Japan is a little slow to the game, so to say, when it comes to that stuff. So I'm always trying to look at all these trends and different things and see how it all plays out. How do you see it playing out?
What you invest in, you're given the ratification to follow that where it goes. So if you're investing in that type of work, you're being given the opportunity, of course, to change. But if, you're interested more in chasing the profit, right, and the control, you have to be taken to its logical conclusion, because you have to experience what that does. You have the right to. We've all believe that consciousness, when it unpacked itself and occupied into the separation of reality as billions of facets on, and if you take this deeper and deeper inside to layers and levels, this is billions of consciousness on all stratifications. And so we've all been given permission to go where our passions are. Yes, there is seduction and addiction along the way, but that's part of the journey, right? You have to work your way through experience. Why? It's not such a good idea. So, because of the investment and the ratification, we're supposed to go in the directions of our passion. That's fine. You have the right to action, but the fruits of your action, you have no right, as Krishna said to Arjuna. So, of course, those that are really awakening to who and what they really are, and they've had all of the experiences and lifetimes of the, Maslow's triangle, perpetrator, victim, hero, rescuer, healer, etc. If you played that enough times, then you can let it go. You see the greater wisdom. You've been there. Now it's in you. It's really in you. And so it's not fair. Of course, it's not fair that if the rest of the world decides to go into, deeper and deeper chaos, they have the right to go there. They need that. Every being is ratified to go in the directions of their passions in order to learn why. Ultimately, you will learn why. And Creator has all the patience. Time is an illusion. So what I see right now is that who coined it best was Daryl and Bashar, right? The trains are leaving the station. And I think recently I saw something that I really resonated with. He said that you can still see the two trains, but there's like this glass growing between them. You can still see, but it's getting harder and harder to feel the separation and, the intensity of the direction that the two trains are moving toward. So to me, this train that all that are, investing in consciousness is moving towards a point of absolute trust and surrender of all control. Whereas look at the other train. They're looking for more control, looking for more domination, looking for, holding the reality and enslaving, whatever. Right? So to me, this is where the real big challenge is. And so going back to where we started, your question when you started with the eclipse, it raised us up. And then the hangover is, you still got work to do. And that work is essential at completely surrendering and trusting in the unknown and your guidance in the unknown and following through with what comes there. Now, like I said, the character is used to plan your life, et cetera, and be so attached to all those markers that it leaves no space to be in the stillness, the top stopping and dropping from the spinning that it's been in means that it has to abide in nothingness. And that's where those roots of unconsciousness that I showed you the graph on earlier, abandonment, betrayal, guiltiness, powerlessness, worthlessness, helpless, hopeless, neediness, and finally nothingness. You already are all things, but that's the part where the ego has the greatest grip on, and so it wants to prove it through the character and through the accomplishment, right? So this going into the nothingness and surrendering and trusting, that's a big deal.
And it's a new operating system. We have
Yes.
to. So I've certainly been exploring that and trying to go with the flow as much as possible. And
I think we're one of the best examples following the flow and serendipitously winding up with all this magic.
it is, and I have to say, man, this journey to Japan, just when my wife and I sort of committed to making the move, so to say, we kind of had this, let's see, world affairs, all this stuff. So we have a nice cush place in Big Bear with my sustainable garden and off-grid stuff, and spending the past 4 years really kind of getting it set up, preparing for big shifts and changes, and we have nothing to worry about. And then so Japan was sort of like a 5-year. Let's kind of put that out there. But as soon as we started like investigating and looking, and I'm like, well, the opportunity is now. Let's move. And then once we started taking action towards that, everything's just falling into place. But I love the analogy of the glass. We can see it. We're in the world. I'm in the center of Tokyo right now. or Yokohama, right? So I'm close enough to Tokyo, but I'm looking out my window. There's buildings as far as the eye can see. It's a concrete jungle. There's trains going by and traffic, and just it's the megalopolis of this area, and everybody's busy and doing this and doing that, and it's craziness. But I feel like we're just navigating this so smoothly through the synchronicities, and everything's just been effortlessly, as long as we're following that thread. So it's I guess that's the best way to do it, is even in the chaos, even if you are in the middle of a city, as many of the cities right now, there is a lot of chaos happening. That heavier energy we're talking about, where people are grasping onto that toothpaste tube, I guess the actual tube, right? Or What part of the toothpaste is that?
Everything within it that's densified.
Yeah, the super crusty stuff, the dried up portions of the toothpaste because they left the bottle open too long. That can happen. That can be going on, but you can still navigate through it, gracefully. And anyways, just wanted to throw out there. I love all your analogies, and I love your perspectives, Ron. You really give it all, everything that's happening now, new views that are very helpful. So thank you for that.
Hey there, if you like this broadcast and want to join us live each week, come over to the Interview with Ed membership portal. The links are down below. And you too can join in the conversation, asking the channel's questions directly and the beans at the channel. And we have a bunch of other offerings. So come on over and hang out with us. It's a great community. See you there.
Kristen has her hand up. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hello, guys. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Kristen. Nice to meet
you guys. Yes, you too. So I hear a lot of references from the Bhagavad Gita. Did you have you gone through the entire book? I mean, it's a deep one, just like the kind of like the Course in Miracles, but I love that you refer to it because I resonate with that a lot more than a lot of the other cultures.
Yeah, Satchidananda version or interpretation.
Oh, yeah.
Because Satchidananda's is so easy to understand, especially for us in the modern day. Right? He just has such a way of conveying the messages inside of that. So, yeah, it was required for us. Lyssa and I, back in 2006, went through Hatha Yoga course. It took a year, and that was required reading both the Bhagavad Gita and the Yoga Sutras. And it's just,
Profound.
it was, so profound and so helpful because I went through a period of challenges, and they were tremendous challenges, like 7 years of court cases. I'd never court case before. And so I had to rely on meditating every day, empty the teacup of all of the tempest that was there. And there was a lot in that tempest. But when I emptied the teacup, then I would have these experiences. And I never believed in, I respected, but I never had any attraction to the Hindu gods, because, at that time that I experienced them, they were at LA airport or at some other airports internationally. And it was, they were singing and dancing and stuff and the Hare Krishna and stuff. I didn't understand it, but respect. Okay. If it's related, okay. But then in my deepest trials, that's when Krishna started showing up. And then I started having more of them showing up. And it was through the greatest trials that they started sharing with me. Everything that I'm sharing with you now is coming from them.
That's what I was hearing your references. And I work with Saraswati a lot. But I'm barely a quarter in. Did you get through the whole edition of it?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It impacted me so much, but I have to tell you, it took a number of years for the prominent seeds to begin to open up. And I've had a lot of different experiences with, I never, my first experience was 2006. I was putting on Flower of Life facilitator training in Russia. And I think there was like 90 students. And before I went in, I would always do meditation before I'd go to the class. And on May 5th, 2006, which is, the celebration of Russia's Independence Day, in comes in a golden chariot, Krishna. And he goes, "Get in." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Get in." All right.
Wow.
So, and experientially, it was like you and me looking at each other right now. It was real.
Yeah.
It was real. I'm going, how the hell is this happening? And we're going up into the east, and that's when, I'm looking at him going, "Who are you? Who are you?" And that's to me, and he goes, "I am Krishna." And I said, "Lord Krishna?" as if I knew what Lord Krishna was, right? Because like I said, I never researched him. I never had any
Yeah.
affinity. But he said, yes, the one and the same. And I got in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, if you're Lord Krishna, shouldn't I be shaking in my boots? You feel so familiar, like I've known you forever.
I could feel that with you. I'm like, he must have had lives with these ascended masters as well, or out there in those cultures, because I hear a lot of your references and on the older episodes, and just like in general when I watched you and Lyssa stuff. And so I was like, okay, he has to have a resonance and connection with these ascended masters because of all I heard. And I've gotten, I flipped through, open the book to random spots to see what I need for certain days and stuff, because that book is just like a treasure in its own. It's a gem. I just have not been able to get through the entire thing because my ADHD is just like, whoa, go back and read that page 6 more times. Read it again until it really gets in there deeply. So if you got through it in a year, but are you still going back to it and referencing it, or you got it down?
At times, I go to certain passages because when I read through it, it was almost like he was talking to me, and he pointed out certain ones that were essential. And I go back to those all the time because they are so helpful. They have tremendously helped me understand the quantum navigation. And quantum navigation is about integrating with all you are across all densities, dimensions, timelines, and beings. So, as Krishna said to Arjuna, you will come in time to realize I'm the beginning, middle, and end of each and every heart. And that means you and I are just him. Going
Beautiful.
through separation reality until we begin to realize, oh, it was you all the time speaking through.
Yes. And I just want to say your energy is addicting. Like, you radiate so much like joy. Like, when I hear you talk and laugh, it makes me want to like laugh because I'm like, this guy, he's just got so much happiness from him. And you do. I can feel it reverberating throughout, like, completely. So yeah, I'm glad that I can resonate with you on that, because that is a wonderful, wonderful book.
God bless you. Keep going into that. It will liberate you. It
Yes,
is
sir.
so informative.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Ron, is that the version you were talking about? Is that available like on Amazon or something? What was
Amazon,
called again?
right.
Okay, could you?
Hold on, I'll grab it. I think I have it. I just reconstructed this room here.
I was going to say, you're in your new office. That looks great.
A little bit of a mess, but I think I have it pretty easy accent. Oh, yeah. Oh, here we go. Yes. Very good. Here is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Swami Satchidananda.
Okay, cool.
And then the Living Gita by, again, same gentleman.
Okay.
Was it this one too? Is this the one you just showed up? I just went and grabbed it.
The Bhagavad Gita, yes. But if you get this version, I think, he's the one who interpreted it. He looks like this.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Swami Sri Satchidananda. Yeah, Sri Swami Satchidananda. This is powerful.
Cool.
It'll empower.
I'll link it down
Is it
in the playback.
Is it the Swami Prabhupada? Is that the same one? Is this the same guy?
No,
Oh,
no. So the
so
interpretations matter. The interpretations matter.
Okay.
Clarity in this is profound. Yes.
Okay.
It just, yeah, like I said, it just impacted me so deeply.
Excellent. I'm actually going to go see Oppenheimer. It's still playing in IMAX here in Tokyo. So tonight, that's and I know he references the Bhagavad Gita in
Yes. Yeah.
in his
Yes.
works.
From what I understand, there's the tripartite creator. That's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So Krishna is the avatar of Vishnu, right? So he comes down into a human form so that he's more easily relatable to our level of consciousness, because who and what he is all of creation. And so, yeah. Anyway, he's the one you want to talk to.
Awesome. All right, Karen, go ahead.
Good evening. How are you? Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Holt or Ronald. Pleasure. My question is, what's your view or visions that you have for the next years and up to 2030? It's been much talked about. You and Lyssa are on the same page. Or not. And after 2030 also seems there are going to be a big shift. And just wanted you to give us your perspective on what's going to happen on your perspective. I mean, I know you're going to say, nothing is for real. There could be this timelines, and this going to happen. Nothing is set. We know, but just a little bit more deeper, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, so you're already familiar with probability and timelines. And so probabilities change, and we are changing our timeline and probability moment by moment. And each and every time we up level, that's going to have us inclusive on a new probability and possibility. So the deeper we trust and the more okay we are in letting go of all control, the more Andromedistic. And what I mean by Andromedistic is Andromedas are uniquely capable as our sister galaxy. They're uniquely capable of being so centered inside of themselves that emotionally they change the reality around them moment by moment. They're so at peace with themselves. So they're learning on such a high level that they can change their emotional states from one moment to the next. And the reality is reflective of what's going on inside of them. And they're so trusting of their capability inside of that they're learning in cooperation with that speed. Now, that's an ideal thing. We're not there yet. We're coming out of 3D, and a lot of us are practicing with 4 and more density levels of consciousness. So we will attract to us according to what's most appropriate for us. And so the more we step away from the need to self-judge, then we open up into the peace, the love, the trust, the surrender that the reality is responding to our consciousness in the most appropriate way. Okay. That's how the change of timelines and probabilities. We exist on all possibilities and probabilities. Like I was pointing out about that sea urchin shell having the plank fibers that extend out into all possibilities and probabilities from the two sea urchins coming close together as the singularity inside of ourselves. At Hadron Collider, when they collided two gold ions for a moment in time, I mean, an infinitesimally small moment in time, it stopped and it exposed it. It illuminated all the possibilities and probabilities. So it kind of looks like this, all the possibilities and probabilities, if you could imagine that being 3D. So if we use this and it illumines all the different layers and levels of consciousness and densities and landscapes, whether it's inside the separational reality or if it's inside of the continuum of consciousness where you have less and less structured realities. You exist at the very center. All of those Planck fibers, just like in the Hadron Collider, all those probabilities and timelines are exposed because reality is exactly that. Time has stopped, so to speak, so we can linearize and explore all these different possibilities and probabilities. So literally, each and every one of us has been split to occupy all these possibilities and probabilities simultaneously. That's a lot to rock your head around. But to answer your question, I'm laying the foundation there so you can see how it operates. That as you trust inside yourself, you get exposed to the probability and possibility that you're working on. Time is okay. There's no pressure. There's no hurry. It's just getting confidence and trust that you can surrender. And as you surrender, you start opening up more of the windows inside of this. So you're exposing yourself, occupying more probabilities and possibility timeline. Right now, it's hard, and we want to have assurances. We want to grip. We want to have something tangible so that we're confident we've made it and we've gone through it. Well, making it is surrendering into the fullness of who and what you are. Total surrender, total trust in the self-realization. You already occupy everything. So your consciousness is going to give you a journey. So if you use this as a metaphor of consciousness that has no beginning, no end, extends everywhere, this is inaccurate because this has a boundary. So consciousness in the continuum has no boundaries. So there's no place it isn't. And so when it's separated, it created a twist in the balloon, so to speak, stopping the flow of consciousness and memory and separation reality set in. Just like if you stop blood in your arm, you go through different phases of separation until you're numb and you can't remember how to move your arm because you feel completely separated. Anyway, if you realize I already am all here and all here and all densities and in all probabilities, then I'm not really moving anywhere. My consciousness moves into different landscapes, probabilities, timelines, species, experiences that are necessary for me to relax, grasp the beauty of the wholeness of all this taking place, all around, moment by moment. And when ready, it has you occupy or has you experience multiple probabilities. To give you an example, I was in Korea, up in the mountains, practicing Taoist yoga. And we were doing standing postures, and the rains were coming in, windows were open. So, the monsoons are coming in. I mean, it's perfect Zen moment. You're so present in your energy movements in the body and stuff. And you're completely there. You're feeling the monsoon coming in, the changes in the humidity and the winds in the room. And all of a sudden, everything was balanced. And I'm having multiple probabilities. I'm on my roof, putting in solar panels simultaneously. I'm on a bus all alone in the middle of Seoul, Korea. I don't know where I'm going. At the same time, I'm with everyone that came in that retreat up in the monastery, and we're having lunch together, and we're all bantering like crazy and stuff. and there was other things that were going on, but all of those happened 2 years later, but it was all simultaneous. So consciousness, I have no control of this. Consciousness decided when you're so relaxed and you're so okay, it'll go, okay, time for you to show you. Reality's not this structure and solidness that we experience in the 3D. And so this questioning of what's happening in the future. Now, I'm more concerned. I don't have a crystal ball and see what's going to happen on certain dates. That's so fluid, especially for beings that are working on their consciousness, because what's happened, this is what I see is an advent, a probability advent, and it's been happening. The species that we are wishing to connect with, we already are operating in those probabilities in timeline. What's keeping us from experiencing it is holding universal consciousness and natural law, total surrender, total trust. When you do, it's happening in the hypnagogic state, the state in between sleep and wakefulness. This is an area where you can begin to explore, paying more to this is a very shamanic eye or lens or ability to see. When you're working on that, you're going to draw to you the experience of other species that are ready and willing to take your hand, embrace you, and help you as long as you can stay. The first time this started happening, I mean, I only lasted 2 milliseconds. Because, we have this thing that's kind of like autocorrect, which is better stated auto mistake. Well, we have a reality autocorrector that's appropriate for our consciousness, what we can accept. And as we root into our consciousness of who and what we are in the fullness of the continuum, occupying all of these spaces, loving and trusting the natural law and the connection, the communion with all other beings, because at that layer and level, there is no malevolence. There's only reverence and unity, and we see and feel each other so fully and completely. We are each other. So I've seen myself operating in these other ships, and I'm like freaked out because I enter the room in the observer consciousness, which I know I'm disembodied. I don't have a body. And me on the console recognizes I came into the room, turns and looks and smiles and goes, yep, it's me. I'm totally freaked. I mean, that kinds of thing causes the reality editor to come in and go. So it's giving us aperture moments to help us make that transition. So when I say that in the end of this year, I think it's going to be a very tumultuous year. It's obvious. I was talking about the increased, invitation to the seduction and addiction, the disease of consciousness, which is polarization, us versus them. It brings it straight into your face in all ways, shapes, and forms. So it's testing us through this process. And all the time, remember Maslow's triangle, perpetrator, I'm not going to let that country or that person do this to me. It's like, I got to control them and show them who's boss. Perpetrator, victim, rescuer, healer, fixer. United States is trying to play fixer and healer in there, but it's honorable, but it's a long view. Anyway, as we see this and step out of this, the reality, especially in the Middle East, and you can see it conflagrating more and more in the polarized view. That's not me, that's the other. Well, they're refusing to see the truth. They haven't done the work to feel, what stands in the way? Unconsciousness, repulsion, revulsion, and contraction. That's dark matter, dark energy, right? Dark energy, repulsive and revulsive. That's unconsciousness. It's repulsive and impulsive. The other is not me. I don't want any part of it. I've got to control them. I've got to contract away from them. So working through the unconsciousness is working through the dark matter, dark energy, the unconscious separational fields between us. So when we're looking at this end of 2024 and the journey through this, we're given an opportunity of having it right in our face. We don't help when we polarize, going, yeah, both guys are. That's not helping anything at all. What really helps is to see unity and consciousness is trying to work it out, and it is tough. So compassion is really appropriate in that way. Anyway, at the end of 2024, as I said, we're going down this throat, the bottleneck between realities, and we're being tested on all the invitations to be seduced by the viruses of consciousness into separation. So how people handle that, they're going to take the road for them. That's going to put them on the probability and possibility timeline that's appropriate for them. All compassion is there. And, as I was stating further back, Creator goes, time is an illusion, so take all the time you need to work it out. But you're going to feel so much better when you do than self-empowered. So I don't know what's going to happen. I hope that this starts to become a reality if all of us on the sidelines are just holding that realization, stepping off the Maslow's triangle and holding that in quantum love, because that is me. Part of me is working out these issues. Each and every one of those fractals is me going through hell. So the thing that helps is my compassion. So my compassion helps, and my self-realization helps put me on the most appropriate timeline and probability line for me. And I trust that. And yet, to trust that takes everything you've got to really trust, letting go of everything and let the Creator move you. This is like stepping off into the dark abyss. Is there going to be a platform that's going to catch your foot, or are you going to fall? I don't know, but I trust that hand will be there to catch my foot when I need to step off into. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in 2030. I know Al Bielek made time travels and brings back, information from those probability lines. Maybe that's going to happen. I don't know. Who is going to go through that probability line? I don't know.
Thank you, Ronald, and thank you for the passion that you have and exude that. just to add 2 points to your mind. my friend keeps talking like, oh, my husband, he's 3D, he's not awake, kind of talk, right? And I'm like, okay, let's say you're moving to Florida and you're deeming yourself so awoke, right? And your husband is not. My friend, if a big flood comes there, you both will be wiped. It doesn't matter how high you're vibrating or low. It is a collective consciousness that dictates what happens to the planet anyway. So we have no control of that. And whatever happens, we're here to buffer those energies as we are standing strong with our light as the bearers of light. And when that happens to them, they're going to be so shaken up. And guess what? We're not. We're going to be here steady and opening our arms to them. And that's what we're here for. So that's what I explained to her. So you brought that point, like pointing out to people, oh, you're not awake or kind of thing. So no, we need both. We have to give compassion, like you said. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, you brought up a really good point. Some of us take a journey where it appears that we're not awakened. And we've made that choice, but the soul is very mature, evolved, and is
It's a choice. Yes, exactly.
okay with operating in the 3D limitation, trusting that, the journey, the finalizations of the journey that it's taken is doing exactly what it needs to do. We cannot judge anybody else. Otherwise, we get trapped into the down with the judgments we carry. So anyway.
Yeah, new souls or not new souls, like you were mentioning the new souls, it's their journey. Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Karen. I was just going to say, you keep saying you don't have crystal balls, but you keep holding two crystal balls.
But when I say in the crystal ball, it's just consciousness in the continuum in unstructured.
That's where we're going. That's where we're going, right?
That's right. That's what we truly are.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. All right, Travis, go ahead. This will be the last question, and then I do want to talk about Lemurian Life Expo after this. Go ahead, Travis.
Hi.
Hello there. Nice to meet you, Travis.
You too. Yeah, I was mentioning about to help move forward with the idea of letting go.
What can help you let go? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Yes. Open. All right. Well, meditation is really important for the process of letting go. In meditation, we get to see how difficult it is in the first phases to get the mind to still. The mind acts on its own and it churns up like a pond. The mind, with its constant pushing and pulling of all these ideas, concepts, and communicating to you things you already know, and it's telling you. So there's a two-part to the mind. The mind that's like a used car salesman that's always pitching ideas, concepts, and wanting your attention. That's the part that, from time immemorial, all the monks say, if you don't learn how to control that and still that, then it will turn you into a slave. So the mind, when we begin the journey of learning how to still it, then the mind becomes a great magnifier, a great tool, and it magnifies the energies inside of us, and especially the heart energy. So learning how to still the mind, which is kind of like learning how to still or watching a pond in rough weather, it'll churn up all the turbidity within it through the currents and stuff. And then you can't see anything except for what's immediately in front of you. But if you learn to still the mind and all the turbidity and all the currents stop and drop, and then you get to see the whole body. More important is you get to feel the whole body. That's the important part. The mind stilling amplifies the heart energy. The heart exists in all parts of the continuum of consciousness and the separational realities. So as you learn to still that, then it begins to expose to you the truth of who and what you are. So there's practices for learning to surrender. So we learn to surrender when the mind is still and it magnifies the flow of unconditional love that generates outside of you. Let's say if we're busy in beta brain, then what happens is the heart begins to close and it stops its natural openness to expand and be a part of all things. And the energy is flowing from within us outward like a river. So surrendering requires access to that. But that takes the process of stilling the mind and then exploring, opening more and more facets of the compartmentalizations of the dramas and traumas that we've stored inside of us, especially around the heart space. And as we trust that process, engaging in transforming and liberating any of those compartmentalized, trapped emotions and stuff, then we get to see we can trust the whole process of being absolutely naked and vulnerable. So being naked and vulnerable is the quintessential element to surrender. And surrendering enables you to draw in more naked vulnerability. And vulnerability is how you navigate in the quantum, because it creates the embrace of inclusivity. I am everywhere and I'm ready to embrace all of myself. So surrender requires this process. Learning how to stop this, then it starts to become nice and clear. And here I go with the sphere again. And like the sphere, it magnifies the heart presence, and then that begins to extend out into magnifying where you are in all parts of creation, and that you can trust creation. Right now, we've had so many instances of when we're naked and vulnerable that we've been traumatized at our most vulnerable state. When we empower by taking this journey of mapping, navigating, and integrating the inner landscape of our conscious and unconscious, it means that we're going into what we have protected and compartmentalized when we were in our most vulnerable states. We have to open those doors back up so that we occupy the continuum and surrender fully to all of that.
Beautiful.
So it begins with meditation, and then the journey evolves little by little.
Thank you. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of meditation, so that'll probably be easy for me.
Fantastic. Love meditation.
Thanks, Travis. Ron, I know I said that was our last question. Do you have time? Can we go a little over and take one more?
Sure.
Okay. Cool. All right, Ben, you're up. Hop in.
Cool. Thanks, Ron. And thanks for sharing everything that you have today. My question, I guess, would be tailing back to what you were talking about, the earth energies and relative hotspots.
And if I'm not mistaken, you used to work with Gianvalo, and I wonder if you could share anything regarding the Serpent of Light book, which covers the Kundalini energy moving from the Kundalini energy of the planet shifting from its home base in Tibet and now down into South America. Would you have anything you could share on that?
I ran Flower of Life. Drumbalo gave me the organization in 1997, and my administration with Lyssa, she helped me, but we ran it until 2013. So by 2013, when I gave it back, he had not written the Serpent of Light. So I'm not familiar with it, but let's see. What can I say about the change that's taking place? What, please rephrase that part of the question.
Yeah, because what I found interesting about it was he proposed that the Earth's Kundalini energy had shifted from its home in Tibet and made its way across the planet to where it now resides very close to Lake Titicaca. And he was suggesting that from the position where it moves, I think every 13,000 years, so that area now would be the epicenter of that energy that we know from the East, radiating the aspects of unity, non-polarity, peacefulness, wisdom, and how during its path, it kind of touched all the lands that it went through. And now, as it would be the epicenter, so if we look at it, the new center of wisdom, as in the East once was, would now be that of South America.
So I don't know about the movement, but I was involved with, I think it was 1997 or 98, when Hunbat's men, the Mayans, and I knew Hunbat's men. Been to his house and we shared. He loved sacred geometry, and so did I at that time. And we worked to assist in trying to bring Drumbalo down there too, but it became this whole big attempt at reunifying the eagle and the condor through those sacred ceremonies at a number of those temples. So there was the Tibetan monks that came, and there was people from all over. I think there was over 400 pupils. Anyway, there's certain timings that have to be honored. So even though the intention may have been really pure to unite the eagle and the condor, which is huge. I think J.J. Hurtak, mentions that inside of his book also, that ceremony is to take place at a given appropriate time. But at that time, all things were set, and then it was clamped down. It was stopped. In fact, Hunbat's went silent. He couldn't talk. And we found out a couple of days later, we were all asking, what's going on? And Hunbat's men, finally said that he was threatened, that if he continued with the ceremonies, he and many others that he loved would be taken out. So at that time, it wasn't ready. I know Reuben also went for something of the same, and it had dangerous liaison. So during one of our last contact retreats, Reuben was a part of it, and I think Latal Cohen was there, and we did the contact protocol. And during the course of that, I was having this intense vision seeing over Tibet, the night sky over Tibet. So I was in the observer and I was watching over to the mountains of Tibet, and coming up were all these little golden radiant pieces, like radiant lights, coming up slowly from all over Tibet, and it formed a golden dragon. And then that golden dragon started slowly moving all across Tibet. And so to me, was a prophetic moment. Those that are doing their work are joining the body of the great golden dragon, which I believe is this. And I use this metaphor coming from progression to separation. And as it experiences enough maturity, then it all gathers and it begins to swirl and change. So it's possible that what you talked about is now from Tibet, it's moving over, getting ready to be the anchor for the surge of energy that's going to be coming up. And maybe now we'll see a true reunification of the energy lines, ley lines, the people, the consciousness of the serpent and the condor.
Wonderful. Thank you, mate.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you for what you're doing for Lyssa's work. I loved it. It's incredible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there's more coming. I love it. It's great to
You
have
have great talent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that something you can share right quick with what are you guys doing, or what are you doing, Ben?
Yeah, I'm just I've just visualized some of her teachings from the recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of them have the Japanese translation.
Right.
So for me, and I collect a lot of the recordings, I study them. And for years, I've been editing the Japanese translation because when I'm listening to it, I don't need to hear 3 hours when I can hear an hour and a half.
Right.
And just this weekend, I was sitting with the Galactic Heritage Cards Zoom workshop that Lyssa did, and it was fantastic. And following that, I'd actually been messing around just with some visuals on Canva for some other stuff that I was doing. And I threw one of the narrations in there, one of the messages from Sasha, and just put some visuals to it because I was going to share it in the private Facebook group for the Galactic Heritage Cards participants. And so I dropped Lyssa a line and said, "Hey, I've got this thing. I just want to show it to you. Is it okay if I post it in the group?" And she kind of liked it and said, "Yeah, this is very synchronous because I want to get more of my messaging out there." So and she said, "Okay, is it okay if I use it on YouTube?" I'm like, "Is it okay? Well, what do you think?" Yeah, I'll be honored. So I'm just having a lot of fun, the things that jump out. And then she posted it to YouTube and on the thing. So take a look. It's just Canva videos with, 5-second dissolves. And, some of it's, a little funny.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. If you don't mind sharing, could you throw that link in the chat here?
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
I did want to, I know we're kind of a little over in our usual time thing here, but I did want to cover the Lemurian Life Expo a little bit. Super excited to have you coming in and teaching and being a part of that event. Can you share with us, for you, what is that Lemurian consciousness, that Lemurian Expo? What does that sort of stand for you? And then tell us a little about your workshop.
Lemuria, when you say Lemuria, it brings up two main of a number of important elements. And so Lemuria, to me, we were talking earlier about that, two eras in our solar orbit through the galaxy. So if our galaxy disk is this way, the solar orbit is perpendicular to it. And so that has a very profound effect on the consciousness. And in the upper side, like I was talking about, that's the integrative side where all the energies start returning back in. And so during the integrative side, as you go up and to the midpoint and and begin to descend, you start moving into different spectrums of unity consciousness. So it gives you time to move into dealing with, all the last of your issues before you fully surrender and trust and you feel unified with all beings. So this means you work through alienation, separation, repulsiveness and revulsiveness of meeting the unknown in other species that are before you, and you feel the unity within them. You feel the oneness within them. So we're moving back into that place. When that happens, is we're sufficiently stabilized into a unity type of consciousness, then we don't have alienation, repulsion, revulsion, or contraction when meeting our other in a different species. And so, obviously, they feel compelled, because they are us, we are them, they feel compelled to share cultural ideals. So Earth becomes a university, a cosmic university. And there's species that are way beyond us, like I was communicating before, the Andromedans, to be able to be so stable that reality changes in a moment. That takes a lot. So Lemuria existed during that period. So as the consciousness, as the solar orbit started descending, of course we move into slowly separating from that. That's when all the university, okay, disassemble the universe, all the 8G's got to go. We feel about it. Because when they were all here, we were feeling like, oh my God, the love is beyond measure. Fulfillment is in everything. And sharing is profound. Lemuria existed during that period. And so we have a lot of emotional connections to when things were so integrated. So, of course, consciousness has to take the solar journey. So below the galactic disk, we move into separation consciousness, alienation, repulsion, revulsion. I don't feel myself in you, so I gotta fear you. And of course, they've got to get out of here. So that's kind of, if we were to label, I would say Lemuria represents the period on that unity consciousness. Atlantis was an attempt to try through spiritual technologies to hold the consciousness out there, but it's depleting and it's diminishing through the spectrums day by day. And everybody's, rebelling against the aristocracy. Why aren't you doing more? We need to more ley lines aligned with these temples. And we got to hold the consciousness. You can see we go through this process of separating and, blame, projection, and all. Come, you didn't fix it. Well, we're supposed to separate. You can't hold on to that unity. That Krishna says to Arjuna, I think to Arjuna, he said, don't try to enlighten mankind during the Kali Yuga, this lowest level of consciousness and the most repulsive, revulsive separation consciousness. You're wasting your time. Wait until the next Yuga, and then you can begin starting to address bringing them out of that consciousness level. So 13,000 years ago and beyond, that's Lemuria. 13,000 years ago was when we're crossing the galactic disk and we're moving into greater separation period. This is when we're really going into technology, control spirituality through technology. I want to keep the energy up high, but we keep failing. Oh, throw more souls in there. Start take their heart out, offer it to the, we did everything wrong. But it's all part of attempting to try to hold the unity. And of course, we're working through Maslow's triangle. Everybody has to experience that. That's humility. Oh my God. To know you've done it all, you have to do it all. There is no enlightenment unless you get damn good and deluded. Then compassion has been pounded into you, and you feel it, you smell it, you see it. So we are now coming back up out of the separational reality. So of course, we're going to be moving back into the memories of that Lemurian consciousness. And that Lemurian, I believe all of this is in preparation of getting ready to see and love and appreciate each other's wounds, because it takes a lot to have the compassion without judgment, to allow a person, enlightenment, there's been a misnomer with enlightenment. Enlightenment, we believe, is never feeling outside of bliss. It's wrong. To know who and what you are, stretched across the continuum, and that you are all compassion, means you can open up and let whatever reality is bringing up for you in the moment as an issue through compassion to bubble up. And because we've compressed inside of ourselves, we stomped it down and tried to manage it and keep it from coming up. Well, now enlightenment is remembering who and what you are, allow the feelings to come up, and then you're able to root into the unconscious level, layers and levels, all the way down into the depths of the darkest hell. But at the same time, your trunk and branches exist all the way up, into, here's Purusha, all of the unbounded, unstructured reality. So we're moving back into that, and we're seeing it with each other, and we're appreciating all the work that's gone on, even if we're still struggling with stuff that comes up, the Eclipse Hangover. Yeah, have compassion. And that stuff's coming up. So anyway, that's the process that's happening now. We're having assistance on so many levels because we're coming back up into that time when, guess what? All those beings are going to be coming back because they can feel it. They are us. They can feel the reverence, communion, and compassion inside of us. And as we move into that, then we make the space for them to be here without alienation, repulsion, revulsion, contraction, and reaction. Look, you're different, but you're still me. So that's one thing. I think the Lemurian Expo and everything you're doing with your cosmic bus, Ruben, and thank you for inviting each and every one of us that you feel as a part. You have a knack feeling, a pure heart and integration and consciousness. And that really means a lot because, having somebody on the outside that sees you after you've been through so much hell, that means a whole lot. So you're creating this change that's taking place. You're inviting us all to participate together and have compassion for each other as we're unifying together, because it takes a lot, to stand next to each other and, hear each other's stories, feel each other's dramas and traumas, and just love each other for staying true to the path. Now, the other thing is Lemurian Life Expo is taking place right at Shasta. And Shasta is where, the birth of, what's his name? Ray Ballard, who became Godfrey Ray King, because at Panther Meadows, he had Saint Germain appear to him, the Ascended Master Saint Germain appear to him with a golden goblet filled with golden liquid light, and said, "Hey, this is for David Livingstone. Why don't you give it to him? He's coming up over the bend, and he's been searching for it all his life. I want you to give it to him." So David Livingstone drunk it and made his ascension. He transfigured during that. So that's the birthplace for the I Am movement and the Ascended Masters. All those teachings of the I Am. Powerful, powerful place. So what a better place to be the nest for all of this.
Awesome. And you're going to be teaching a workshop. Could you tell us a little bit about your workshop?
Yes, I want to give a mini quantum navigation introduction, which means I got to lay down a little bit of the foundation, the understanding that helps us begin to take the mantle of owning ourselves up in all states, layers, levels, and densities and dimensions inside the unstructured continuum of consciousness, which has no end. And then at the same time, using that as a symbol, the sphere as a symbol, understand how we're also connected with our roots into all the structured layers, levels, densities, dimensions. I kind of gave you a little bit of a workshop during the course of this, talking about the timelines, probability lines, and all this, so it's a little bit to kind of go over to help spark the memory that you are everywhere, and that's what you came in with. So you can use that as the default and trust stepping back into that. You already exist everywhere. You're learning how to unbound yourself in the layers and levels of separation through the process of mapping, navigating, and integrating the inner landscapes of the conscious and unconscious direct experience. That way, by doing it directly, you untie the knots that you did. We're looking in as an inner child who never had the right parent. We've been waiting for us, the parent of our experience and our nurturing and patience and validation. We've been waiting for our adult to wake up that the inner child needs its help. The inner child came in without the adult's understanding and experience and overall perspectives. The child only has polarizations because it incompletely processes its dramas and traumas. So bringing those two together, we can go down into the roots and liberate where it's holding its beliefs against itself, its separation belief paradigms. And so that's what we're doing in quantum navigation, is looking at that so we get the preparation that we can face ourselves in the deepest, darkest parts of the separation reality. And and
Awesome.
then, so I could, obviously, this is actually a 2-day course, but it's married with, you got to have the meditation capacity to move into those states, because you're your greatest hero. So it's only you that's going to rescue you. It's only you that's going to disentangle from all the layers and levels of your contracted attachments to polarized belief systems that self-limit and self-wound. And so laying down that that foundation, then what I'm going to do is do a guided meditation to help move you out and experience first inside of the separation realities so that you feel, hey, every part of that is me. Oh, okay, I'm not alien here. I can be here. And then move it into bridging past the membrane between these two, and occupy all of here and have a channeling from the continuum consciousness, whatever is that consciousness sees is appropriate for us to experience while we're in that unbounded state. There's a lot of healing that can take place inside of that experientially. That's what we're looking to do, Shasta. Of course, like I said, this course is, I can only do a mini.
Yeah. No, we're going to just
Give
do
them all
it.
to you.
We'll get a taste. And then people can follow. But I appreciate your willingness to join us there and to share your modalities. And just today, too, for going as long as we have and sharing all your wonderful wisdom and knowledge and great analogies to explain these concepts and ideas that, again, we're all feeling this eclipse hangover, and it's hard to put into words. And you do such a beautiful, elegant, poetic way of putting all these concepts into words that we can sort of formulate our own understandings for it all. So thank you for your wisdom and understanding all that.
And I believe everyone there that you have as keynote speaker is doing such an instrumental part at, opening much more diversity of looking at this, experiencing this. We can all assimilate it a little better. Thank goodness. Thank you.
I'm just blessed to be, guided through this journey and have these amazing interactions with, yourself, Lyssa, and these other channelers and wisdom sharers, I guess, shamans, however you want to, whatever label, everybody's got their thing, but I'm on for the ride. I'm like, hey, what if we took all these cool people, put them together, like in Mount Shasta on a summer solstice? What would happen? I think that would be super cool. So that's what we're doing. So appreciate your participant in this.
We trust you as the driver of the cosmic bus.
There's others too, but yeah, it's fun. And that's the most important thing is I think we're just going to come together and have fun, explore, make these cosmic connections, connect into Telos and the mountain, the I Am presence, Saint Germain, and all of those energies all are there in this magical area. So if you get a bunch of magical people together in a magical area, I'm sure magic's going to happen. So
the chances are,
right. We're increasing our probabilities. So, but thank you for that, and thank you for today for all the knowledge. And we'll bring this to a close. Say hi to Lyssa for us, give her a big hug, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Give Eureka a big hug.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Will do. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you like this interview. We actually do this every week on my membership portal page. You can access it through interviewwithed.org or click on the link somewhere in here. I'll put a link and come over there and join us. You too can ask questions. Every week we have new special guests, and you get to ask questions directly to the channelers and to the beings that they channel. So see you in the portal.